Try to picture this scene. Among sun-scorched sands, where summer temperatures climb to 50 degrees Celsius, a real living river flows. 1 million fish live in it. Sounds like science fiction? Yet this is reality, created by Israel in the very heart of the Negev desert. Subscribe to the channel to learn incredible stories about the technologies of tomorrow. The Negev desert covers more than half of Israeli territory. This is a place where rain happens only a few times a year, and ancient riverbeds long ago became dry, rocky ravines. For centuries, Bedouin tribes have wandered here, learning to live where water practically doesn't exist. In the 20th century, Jewish settlers began developing these lifeless territories. They built kibbutzim, laid water supply systems, created drip irrigation. Every drop of water here was valued like gold. However, the dream of a living river in the middle of the desert seemed absolutely unattainable. Everything changed at the beginning of the 21st century when Israel achieved a breakthrough in seawater desalination technologies. Massive desalination plants on the Mediterranean coast began turning salt water into fresh water. This gave the country the ability to think not only about survival, but also about nature restoration. Simultaneously, a wastewater treatment system was developing. Israel reached a record 90% recycling rate, which no other country had achieved. Treated water went to agricultural fields, freeing up valuable fresh resources for other needs. At this moment, a group of researchers from Ben-Gurion University proposed a bold idea: create an artificial river ecosystem right in the middle of the desert. Not just a channel with water, but a real living system with fish, vegetation, microorganisms. Many people called this utopian, but the researchers were confident of success. The first step was a detailed study of Negev geology. Scientists discovered something amazing. Under the sands, at a depth of 15 to 30 meters, lie ancient aquifer layers. This water accumulated there thousands of years ago when the climate was more humid. But the most interesting thing turned out to be that underground water naturally warmed up through geothermal processes to 40 degrees Celsius. It was brackish, not suitable for drinking, but ideal for creating a stable aquatic environment. The engineering team created a unique water supply system. They mixed warm underground water with treated surface water, achieving an optimal balance of temperature and salinity. The water had to flow continuously, creating an imitation of natural river flow. Choosing the territory for the future river took several months. They needed to find a site with suitable terrain where water could flow by gravity, forming natural movement. Ultimately, they chose a valley in the central part of Negev, protected from the harshest winds. Territory preparation began. Bulldozers formed the riverbed, excavators created different depths where fish could find shelters. Landscape specialists planted drought-resistant plants along the future banks: tamarisk, acacia, date palms. Simultaneously, monitoring infrastructure was being built. Along the entire length of the future river, they placed automatic stations capable of tracking multiple parameters around the clock: temperature, oxygen, pH level, nutrient content, flow speed. When the technical part was ready, the most critical stage began: launching the water. The first streams flowed through the riverbed in February 2023. Engineers carefully controlled every liter, adjusting the supply so as not to wash away the banks and ensure stable flow. The next 6 months were spent stabilizing the aquatic environment. They had to wait until a layer of bottom sediments formed, beneficial bacteria multiplied, and coastal plants took root. This was a waiting period when the river existed, but there was no life in it yet. This section survived both heat and sharp nighttime cooling. The geothermal mixture helped maintain temperature more stably. Even when air dropped to 0 and below, water remained in a comfortable range for living organisms and didn't fall into icy stress. In summer 2023, testing with small groups of fish began. They released several hundred tilapia into specially isolated sections. These fish are from Africa. They're hardy, reproduce quickly, and tolerate changing conditions well. The results of the first tests were encouraging. Tilapia not only survived, it demonstrated normal behavior, explored territory, fed, formed schools. This gave the green light for the main stage of the project. The decisive day arrived, January 2024. A column of trucks with special tanks equipped with oxygen supply systems drove up to the valley. They contained 1 million fish of different species raised on fish farms throughout Israel. The team of ichthyologists acted with surgical precision. Fish couldn't just be dumped into the water. This would cause shock and mass death. Each batch was first placed in intermediate containers where water temperature gradually equalized with the rivers. The release process stretched over 3 days. Tilapia made up approximately 60% of the total number. Another 30% was carp, resistant to different conditions. The remaining 10% were local desert species capable of living in brackish water. The first day after launch became the most tense for the entire team. People were on duty around the clock, observing fish behavior through underwater cameras. Some individuals immediately began swimming actively. Others froze at the bottom, adapting to the new environment. In the first days, oxygen dropped, and this was expected. 1 million fish consume it quickly. Then they turned on additional aerators to strengthen mixing and saturate the water with air while the system reached a steady state. By the end of the first week, the picture became clear. About 15% of the fish died in the first days, which matched forecasts. The rest adapted and began distributing themselves along the river, finding suitable sections depending on flow speed and depth. Tilapia occupied shallow, warm zones where sunlight warmed the water most. Carp preferred deeper and cooler sections with slow flow. Local species settled in transitional zones, demonstrating amazing flexibility. A month later, an unexpected effect appeared. The biomass of phytoplankton, microscopic algae, increased sharply. The reason is simple. Fish waste enriched the water with nitrogen and phosphorus, and food chains began engaging. Phytoplankton became the food base for zooplankton, tiny crustaceans and other microorganisms. They, in turn, supported juveniles and small fish. The food chain began forming naturally without additional intervention. In spring 2024, the first signs appeared that the ecosystem was functioning. Coastal plants, receiving nutrients from the water, grew so much that they began providing shade. This created additional microzones with different temperatures and different flow speeds near the shore. Birds also discovered the new river. First to arrive were herons and cormorants, attracted by the abundance of fish. This was both pleasing and worrying. The young system still needed time to withstand such pressure. By summer 2024, the number of birds had grown. and they had to make some sections more protected. Over some zones, they stretched nets so that fish would have calm places, especially where they expected spawning. In autumn, Israel's Nature and Parks Authority conducted the first large-scale survey. Biologists used electrofishing, a method of temporarily stunning fish with weak current for counting and examination. The results exceeded expectations. More than 750,000 individuals survived. But the main discovery was something else. During examination of caught fish, they found pregnant tilapia females. This meant that fish weren't just surviving, they were preparing to reproduce. Although by early expectations, this should have taken more time. Reproduction began in December 2024. Female tilapia laid eggs in shallow protected coves where flow was minimal. Males guarded territories, demonstrating aggressive behavior toward competitors. The first fry appeared after 2 weeks. Tiny, semi-transparent fish stayed at the bottom, feeding on zooplankton. Their survival in nature is always low, but even a small fraction of survivors quickly changes the balance in a young system. January 2025 brought a test of cold. Nighttime temperatures for Negev dropped unusually low, and the team expected problems. But the water held in the warm corridor thanks to geothermal support, and this became one of the strongest arguments in favor of the chosen scheme. In spring 2025, the river's fish population was estimated at approximately 1,200,000 individuals. Natural reproduction compensated for losses from birds and diseases. The ecosystem began working not only on external support, but also on its own dynamics. However, population growth created a new problem. On hot days, the oxygen level in the water began falling faster than desired. Warm water holds less oxygen, and this forced the system to work more precisely. Then they intensified aeration and slightly increased flow speed. Additionally, part of the water supply regime was reconfigured to reduce stagnant sections during the hottest weeks and give the water more movement. In summer 2025, the first serious disease outbreak occurred. Several hundred carp in one river section began demonstrating signs of fungal infection. Ulcers on the body, lethargy, refusal of food, everything indicated a problem. The veterinary team urgently isolated the infected section, installing temporary net barriers. Sick fish were caught and destroyed to prevent infection from spreading. The rest in the isolated zone were treated with antifungal agents. Fortunately, the outbreak didn't spread further. This episode became a reminder. The system may look alive and confident, but sometimes one pathogen is enough to put it on the brink. This incident reminded everyone of a simple thing. Even a beautifully working system remains vulnerable to details that are usually written as one line in reports. In autumn 2025, another unexpected event occurred in the river. Samples began containing fish that hadn't been released there. There could be several explanations. One likely version was egg transfer by birds, something that sometimes happens in nature. Among the new guests were small local species living in temporary water bodies after rare rains. This revealed an interesting duality of the project. Hydrologically, it remains closed and managed, but biologically, it's already connected to the environment through birds, insects, and vegetation. In winter 2025 and 26, the population was estimated at approximately 1.5 million individuals. Reproduction continued, and juveniles found shelters in coastal thickets and in sections with weak flow. But scientists understood. The real test is still ahead. The ecosystem has existed for only 2 years, and this is a tiny time in natural scales. They need to observe for at least 5 and preferably 10 years to make confident conclusions, especially for a desert zone. Meanwhile, interest in the project began growing, and this was expected. Delegations from neighboring countries came to look at the system live because water scarcity in the region has long ceased to be theory and become daily politics and economics. Persian Gulf states were watching particularly carefully. There's almost no fresh water there, but there are resources and a desire to build solutions for decades ahead. Such a pilot project looked like a rare opportunity to test ideas not on paper, but in reality. However, direct copying of the Israeli model is impossible. Each desert is unique. In one, there's different geology. In another, different chemical composition of groundwater. In a third, unpredictable winds and dust storms. Even a successful scheme requires adaptation. Israeli scientists gradually prepared publications and reports on early results. Importantly, the project was positioned as a demonstration of approach, not a ready universal template. Here are the key words: pilot, control, hypothesis testing. The Negev project showed several fundamental things. First, modern water recycling and desalination technologies allow allocating resources for ecosystem restoration without directly taking water from cities. Second, geothermal underground waters in desert regions can work as a natural temperature stabilizer. Such warmth reduces the risk of sharp fluctuations, meaning it supports life during seasons when ordinary desert water would become too cold or unstable. Third, correct species selection is critically important. Tilapia and carp were chosen not by chance. They're resilient, omnivorous, quickly gain mass, and can tolerate water parameter fluctuations that are inevitable in the desert. Fourth, parameter management is more important than beautiful promises. In this story, the winner isn't the one who talks louder about miracles, but the one who knows how to reduce load in time, add aeration, adjust flow, and isn't ashamed to admit risk. The economic side of the project also deserves attention. Initial investments amounted to about $15 million. This includes infrastructure construction, monitoring systems, fish stocking, and maintenance for the first 2 years. Current costs for maintaining the system are about $500,000 per year. This is energy for pumps and aerators, staff salaries, equipment maintenance. For Israel, these are acceptable costs for an ecological experiment of global significance. There's also potential economic return. The river attracts visitors and educational groups, becomes a place where students study ecological restoration. In the future, a careful model of recreational fishing is possible if biologists consider it safe. But the main value of the project isn't in money. It shows that humans can be not only destroyers, but also architects of restoration if they act carefully and scientifically. Against the backdrop of droughts and disappearing rivers, such an example resonates with people precisely because it's alive. Project critics point to its artificiality. Indeed, this isn't a wild natural river, but a carefully designed system dependent on technologies. But in the 21st century, the boundary between natural and human-created is increasingly blurred. Take, for example, Dutch polders, lands reclaimed from the sea. These are absolutely artificial landscapes, but they've become home to millions of people and thousands of plant and animal species. Or Singapore's vertical forests, where trees grow on skyscrapers. The Israeli Desert River continues this tradition of ecological engineering. It shows that in the era of climate crisis, waiting for nature's mercy can be dangerous. Sometimes it's necessary to design sustainable systems capable of existing in new conditions. It's interesting to compare this project with other attempts at desert greening. China spent billions on the Great Green Wall, planting billions of trees along the Gobi Desert border. But many trees died due to lack of water. Arab countries are building farms with hydroponics, where plants receive water directly to roots without soil. This works for vegetable production, but doesn't create ecosystems. The Israeli approach tries to find balance between technology and nature. Some ecologists worry about long-term consequences. What if the system gets out of control? What if invasive species penetrate the river and displace released fish? What if climate conditions change and geothermal water becomes less stable? These concerns are justified. History knows examples when human interventions in nature led to catastrophes. The introduction of rabbits to Australia, stalking of African perch in Lake Victoria, the drying of the Aral Sea in the Soviet Union. But the Israeli team learned these lessons. The hydrological circuit is controlled, and the task is to prevent water from freely flowing into natural channels. At the same time, impact on surrounding life still appears through birds, insects, and vegetation, and they consider this part of observations, not a side effect that can be ignored. Moreover, in an emergency situation, the project can be quickly put into shutdown mode. It's enough to shut off water supply, and the section will begin losing volume, and fish can be caught and relocated. This isn't an ideal option, but it exists as insurance. The philosophical aspect of the project also deserves attention. What is nature in the 21st century? Can we call nature only what exists without human participation? Or is an ecosystem we created also part of nature if it already has a self-sustaining cycle? These questions go beyond ecology and concern our understanding of humanity's place in the world. We can no longer be passive observers. Our impact on the planet is so great that we've become a force changing climate and landscapes. The Israeli river in the desert symbolizes a new approach to relationships with nature. Not conquest and not blind non-intervention, but careful partnership. We create conditions, nature responds, and then fine-tuning begins. By the beginning of 2026, the project approached a critical phase. The next few years will show whether the system can exist for decades or this is temporary success that will end in collapse. Future plans are ambitious. If the river continues to function stably, they plan to expand it. Additional sections may be created in other parts of Negev, gradually forming a network of artificial water bodies through the desert. Integration with agriculture is also being discussed. Water from the river after filtration can be used for field irrigation. Fish waste, rich in nutrients, will become organic fertilizer. This will create a closed production cycle. Researchers are studying the possibility of introducing commercial fish species into the river. If controlled fishing can be established, this will provide an additional protein source for the region. Israel imports most fish. Domestic production will reduce dependence. But all these plans depend on one thing: stability of the existing system. It's too early to talk about scaling. They need to ensure the river withstands the test of time, droughts, possible fish diseases, and other unforeseen challenges. Meanwhile, similar projects are beginning to appear in other countries. Morocco launched a pilot program in the Sahara Desert, Israel. The United Arab Emirates is investing in research on creating artificial oases with water systems. Even in the USA, in Arizona State, where the Sonoran Desert suffers from drought and the shallowing of the Colorado River, authorities are considering the possibility of creating closed water systems based on recycled water and renewable energy. Global warming makes the water problem increasingly acute. According to UN forecasts, by 2050, more than half of Earth's population will live in regions with freshwater deficit. Traditional solutions, dams and reservoirs, are no longer coping. New approaches are needed, combining desalination technologies, recycling, efficient use, and restoration of water ecosystems. The Israeli project in Negev can become one of the working demonstrations of what this looks like in real infrastructure, not in a presentation. It's important to understand limitations. Creating an artificial river in the desert requires significant investments, technologies, expertise. This isn't a universal solution for poor countries where there are no resources for such experiments. But technologies are getting cheaper. What costs $15 million today might cost $5 in 10 years. Solar energy in deserts is almost free. Desalination plants are becoming more efficient. Monitoring systems cheaper thanks to mass production of sensors. Over time, similar projects may become accessible even for developing countries. International organizations such as the World Bank and UN environmental programs are already showing interest in financing similar initiatives in Africa and Asia. The educational aspect of the project can't be underestimated. Ben-Gurion University created a special program for students from developing countries where they study water resource management technologies in arid regions. Graduates of this program return home with knowledge and experience they can apply in their countries. This creates a global network of specialists capable of implementing advanced water management and ecosystem restoration methods. The social effect of the project is also significant. Local Bedouin communities, traditionally engaged in livestock farming, are now involved in monitoring and maintaining the river system. This gives them stable income and new skills. Youth from Bedouin settlements undergo training in working with sensors, equipment maintenance, fish care. The project becomes a bridge between traditional lifestyle and modern technologies, helping preserve cultural identity while adapting to new realities. The river's tourism potential is also opening up. Ecotourism in deserts is gaining popularity. People travel to see with their own eyes an incredible sight. A living river with fish in the middle of scorched sands where summer temperature exceeds 50 degrees Celsius. Viewing platforms have been built. Educational excursions organized where guides talk about system creation technologies, fish species, the importance of water resources. This attracts visitors annually, bringing income to the region, even if the scale remains modest so far. Some critics call the project showboating, an expensive demonstration of technological superiority without real benefit. Why spend millions on fish in the desert when this money could be directed to solving social problems? The answer lies in the fact that this isn't just fish. This is a scientific platform, a testing ground for technologies that might be useful to millions of people in the future. Every lesson here is tested in the field, not in a model, and this is a completely different level of value. Moreover, the project creates jobs, attracts visitors, produces knowledge. This is an investment not only in ecology, but also in economy, education, science. Long-term returns may many times exceed initial investments. In a world full of alarming news about climate and species extinction, this project resonates because it shows action. Not a promise, not a slogan, but an attempt to assemble a working mechanism where nature has long been silent. Israeli scientists are the first to acknowledge the system's fragility and risks of failure. But they also show that with an approach based on science, measurements, and readiness to change the regime, it's possible to push the boundaries of the possible. The river in the Negev desert has become a symbol of a new attitude toward nature. Not exploitation and not romantic non-intervention, but active, scientifically based management. We live in the era of the Anthropocene, when humans have become one of the main forces shaping the planet. This imposes responsibility. We can no longer afford to be careless. Every decision about land use, water use, energy must be made considering long-term consequences for ecosystems and climate. The Israeli project shows what this can look like in practice. Months of preparation, thousands of measurements, constant adjustment of regimes, readiness to stop and go back a step. This requires patience, investments, expertise. In 20 years, we'll look back and assess whether this project became the beginning of a new era of desert restoration or remained a single experiment. Much depends on how events unfold in the coming years. If the system remains stable, if the fish population continues to grow naturally, if they manage to avoid catastrophic disease outbreaks and oxygen collapse, this will prove the viability of the concept. Then similar projects will begin to be implemented everywhere. If the system collapses, this will also be a valuable lesson. We'll learn which factors we underestimated, where we made mistakes in calculations, what needs to be changed. Science develops through mistakes no less than through successes. For now, in January 2026, 1 million fish continue swimming in the desert river. They feed, reproduce, interact with coastal plants and birds. The ecosystem lives, breathes, evolves. This is an incredible achievement. In the middle of one of the planet's harshest deserts, humans created an oasis of life using technology, science, and determination. Regardless of what happens next, this moment has already entered history as proof of human ingenuity. 1 million fish in the Negev desert isn't just an ecological experiment. This is a message to future generations. We can correct past mistakes. We're capable of creating, not only destroying. In a world where deserts are advancing and water is becoming scarce, this is a vitally important message. If you're interested in stories about technologies changing our world, subscribe to the channel, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think? Will this desert river be able to exist in 10 years? Or is it doomed to dry up? Write what solutions for combating water scarcity you consider most promising.